My name is Cassidy Monroe. I'm 31 years old. And I found my wedding photos in a stranger's house, 3 years before I ever got married. Not copies. Not something similar. My face. My dress. My flowers. Hanging on someone else's wall like a memory they owned. I stood there and I couldn't breathe. My hands went cold. Because the date stamp on the back of every single photo, I checked all of them, was from 3 years before the day I walked down that aisle. Someone had my wedding before I did. And the worst part? When I finally found out why, I realized the people closest to me already knew. They knew. And nobody said a word. Before I tell you what actually happened, if you're new here, please like this video and hit subscribe. It genuinely helps more than you know. And drop a comment below, where are you watching from? I read every single one. Now, let me take you back to the day everything I thought I knew about my own life started falling apart. It was a Saturday afternoon in October. I was helping my friend Dana clear out her late aunt's house. Just boxes. Just dust. Just something to do on a weekend. The aunt had passed 3 weeks earlier. No husband. No kids. Nobody who really knew her well. Dana barely visited. That alone should have told me something. We were in the back bedroom when Dana called me over. She'd found a box tucked behind the closet wall. Not on a shelf. Behind it. Like it had been deliberately pushed out of sight. Inside were photographs. Printed. Framed. Some loose. Some wrapped in tissue paper like they were precious. Dana handed me one without looking at it properly. I looked at it. And my stomach dropped straight through the floor. It was a bride. In a white dress. Holding pale pink peonies. It was me. Same dress I wore on my wedding day. Same flowers. Same veil. I flipped it over with shaking hands. The date on the back read October 14th. My wedding was October 14th. But my wedding was 3 years after this photo was taken. I didn't scream. I didn't drop the photo. I just stood there holding it with both hands like it might disappear if I moved. Dana was still digging through the box. She hadn't seen my face yet. I looked around the room slowly. Really looked. For the first time since we'd walked in, I actually looked at the walls. There were more. Not just one photo. A whole arrangement. 7, maybe 8 frames. Different sizes. All mounted carefully. All centered like someone had measured the spacing. All of them were me. Me in the dress. Me holding the flowers. Me standing in front of a church I recognized immediately, St. Michael's on Garfield Avenue. The exact church where Daniel and I got married. Dana turned around and saw my face. She stopped talking mid-sentence. I pointed at the wall. She looked. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Neither of us spoke for almost a full minute. Then I pulled one frame off the wall and turned it over. Behind it, taped to the back, a name. Written in careful, small handwriting. Not my name. A name I had never seen before in my life. Eleanor Voss. Eleanor Voss. I said the name out loud. It meant nothing to me. Dana grabbed her phone and searched it immediately. No results. No social media. No LinkedIn. No trace of anyone by that name in our city. A person with no digital footprint in 2024 isn't just private. That's deliberate. I went back to the box. I needed to see everything inside it. There were 43 photographs total. I counted. Every single one featured me. But here's what made my skin crawl. I was never looking at the camera. Not once. In every single photo, I was mid-laugh. Mid-turn. Mid-conversation. Candid shots. Every one of them. These weren't photos someone had staged. These were photos someone had taken without me knowing. My rehearsal dinner. My bridal shower. My first dress fitting. Moments I remembered clearly, moments I had no idea anyone was watching. And then I found the last photo at the very bottom of the box. It wasn't from my wedding events. It was older. Much older. I was maybe 24. Standing outside my old apartment on Birchwood Street. The apartment I moved out of 7 years ago. Eleanor Voss had been watching me for 7 years. I need to tell you about my actual wedding day. Because you need to understand what was at stake. October 14th. 3 years after those photos were taken. Daniel and I had dated for 5 years before he proposed. The wedding was small. 60 people. St. Michael's on Garfield Avenue. Pale pink peonies, because they were my grandmother's favorite flower. Everything about that day was specific to me. To us. The dress took 4 fittings. I picked it alone. No Pinterest board. No bridal magazine. I walked into one boutique on a Tuesday morning and it was just there waiting. The church was Daniel's choice. His parents were married there. His grandparents too. It meant something real to his family. The flowers I chose 2 weeks before the wedding. Last-minute decision. Nobody outside my florist knew until the morning of. So here is what I need you to understand. Nobody could have guessed those details. Not the dress. Not the church. Not the flowers. Every element in those photographs was a decision I made privately. Independently. Sometimes completely alone. And yet every single detail appeared in photos dated 3 years earlier. Which means Eleanor Voss didn't predict my wedding. She planned it first. I drove home from Dana's aunt's house with 3 photographs hidden in my bag. I didn't tell Dana I took them. I just needed them close. That night I sat at my kitchen table under the light and examined every detail. Daniel was asleep upstairs. I didn't wake him. Not yet. I needed to think first. The date stamps were printed directly onto the photo paper. Not written. Not stickered. Printed during processing. Which meant they were generated at the time of printing. October 14th. 3 years prior. I pulled out my wedding album from the shelf. Opened it to the first page. Compared them side by side. Same dress. Same angle. Same flowers. Same church steps. But my album was printed 8 months after the wedding. These photos were printed 3 years before it even happened. I flipped to the inside cover of my wedding album. There was a small stamp from the photography studio. Harlow and Reed Photography. Downtown. I picked up the loose photograph from Eleanor's box. Turned it over slowly. Same stamp. Harlow and Reed Photography. My photographer. My studio. The one Daniel booked without telling me as a surprise. Eleanor Voss used the same photographer. I was at Harlow and Reed's door by 9 the next morning. Monday. They'd just unlocked. The receptionist was young. Friendly. Had no idea what she was walking into. I placed the photograph on her desk face up. I asked her to pull the client file for Eleanor Voss. I kept my voice steady. I'd practiced in the car. She typed the name. Waited. Frowned slightly at her screen. No record found. I asked her to search by the date stamp instead. October 14th. 3 years back. She typed again. This time her expression changed. She excused herself and disappeared into the back office. She was gone 11 minutes. I counted. When she came back, she had a man with her. Mid-50s. Gray jacket. He introduced himself as the studio manager, Richard Harlow. He looked at the photograph. Then he looked at me. Then he said something that stopped everything. He said, "We've had another woman come in asking about this exact same photo." I asked him when. He said 6 days ago. I asked him who she was. He glanced down at the photograph in my hand. Then back up at my face. He said, "She looked a lot like you." Richard Harlow wouldn't give me her name. Privacy policy. He was apologetic but firm. I didn't push. I smiled. I thanked him. I walked out. I sat in my car and pulled up everything I could find about Harlow and Reed Photography. Their website. Their reviews. Their social media going back 3 years. 2 hours in I found a tagged post. A client review from exactly 3 years ago. October. A woman thanking the studio for capturing the most important day of my life beautifully. The account was private. The name listed was E. Voss. One profile photo. Just one. Small. Slightly blurred. I zoomed in as far as my phone allowed. And my coffee went cold in my hand. The woman in that photo had my hair. My jawline. My eyes. Not similar. Not resemblant. Identical in a way that made my chest tighten. I forwarded the screenshot to Dana immediately. Called her before it even delivered. Dana picked up on the first ring. I asked her what she actually knew about her aunt. Long pause. Too long. Dana said Cassidy. My aunt's name wasn't Eleanor. I asked her what her aunt's real name was. Another pause. Her name was Margaret. Margaret Monroe. Monroe. My married name. Margaret Monroe. I said it out loud 3 times sitting in that car. Dana didn't know much. Margaret was her father's estranged sister. They hadn't spoken in over 15 years. Dana only inherited the house because there was nobody else left. I asked Dana one question. Did Margaret ever marry? Dana said yes. Once. Very young. It ended badly. She never spoke about it. I asked for the ex-husband's name. Dana had to call her father. I waited 20 minutes in that parking lot. She called back. The name was Daniel. Daniel Monroe. My husband. I want you to sit with that for a second. Margaret Monroe was Daniel's ex-wife. She took his last name. Kept it even after the divorce. And somehow, silently, invisibly, she had watched me become everything she used to be. Same last name. Same church. Same photographer. Same flowers. She didn't copy my wedding. I was copying hers. Without ever knowing it existed. Daniel had never mentioned her. Not once in 5 years. No ex-wife. No marriage. Nothing. I drove home with both hands tight on the wheel. Daniel's car was in the driveway. He was home early. He never came home early. I didn't go inside immediately. I sat in the driveway watching the kitchen window. Daniel was on the phone. Pacing. I could see his silhouette moving back and forth behind the curtain. I had never seen Daniel pace before. In 5 years. Never. I waited until he stopped. Then I walked in through the back door quietly. Set my bag down without a sound. He was standing at the kitchen counter when I walked in. Phone face down. Arms crossed. He smiled. Asked how my day was. I put the photograph on the counter between us. Said nothing. He looked down at it. The smile didn't disappear dramatically. It just faded. Slowly. Like something draining out. He asked me where I got it. I told him Margaret Monroe's house. His jaw tightened. One small movement. But I caught it. I asked him directly. Were you ever married before me? He didn't answer immediately. That pause lasted 4 full seconds. I counted every one. Then he said yes. But it was complicated. He said he was going to tell me. He said Margaret was unstable. Obsessive. That she'd been following us for years. I asked him how he knew she'd been following us. He stopped talking completely. Because that question had only one answer. He already knew. Daniel knew Margaret had been watching us. For how long I didn't know yet. But he knew. I didn't raise my voice. I pulled out a chair. Sat down. Folded my hands on the table. I told him to start from the beginning. He sat across from me. He looked at the table for a long time before he spoke. They married young. 22. It lasted 18 months. Margaret became obsessive after the divorce. Showing up at his workplace. His apartment. His family events. He got a restraining order. 7 years ago. 7 years ago. The same year that first photograph was taken outside my old apartment on Birchwood Street. Margaret hadn't been watching me randomly. She started watching me the moment Daniel and I met. I asked Daniel why he never told me any of this. He said he didn't want to scare me. He said he thought she'd stopped. Then I asked the question that had been sitting in my chest since the parking lot. Did you choose St. Michael's Church because of your family? Or because that's where you married her first? Complete silence. His eyes answered before his mouth did. I stood up. Picked up my keys. He reached for my arm. I walked out the front door. I stayed at Dana's that night. I didn't cry. I just sat on her couch staring at nothing until about 2 a.m. Dana made tea. Didn't ask questions. That's why she's my person. In the morning, I called a lawyer. Then I called a private investigator. In that order. The PI came back with results in 4 days. Margaret Monroe had been documenting my life in careful, methodical detail since the day Daniel introduced me to his colleagues at a work function 7 years ago. She was there that night. Nobody knew. She watched me pick my dress. She watched me choose my flowers. She watched me book St. Michael's. And then she recreated my wedding 3 years before I had it. Every detail matched. She made sure of that. The PI found something else. Margaret had contacted Harlow and Reed 6 days before I walked in. She wasn't asking about the photos. She was trying to warn me. She had left an envelope at the front desk addressed to Cassidy Monroe. Richard Harlow still had it. Unopened. He didn't know who Cassidy Monroe was until I walked through his door. I picked up that envelope the same afternoon. I held it for a long time before opening it. Inside was a single handwritten line. He did the same thing to me. I filed for divorce 3 weeks later. Daniel contested it initially. Then he stopped. I think he knew exactly how much I had uncovered. The lawyer made sure of that. I tried to find Margaret. I genuinely did. I went back to the house twice. Dana gave me full access. I searched for a forwarding address, a phone number, anything. Margaret Monroe had disappeared completely. No new address. No activity. Nothing filed. Nothing registered. Just gone. The PI hit every dead end possible. After 6 weeks he told me some people simply don't want to be found. I think about her note every single day. 7 words. Written in that same small careful handwriting I'd seen on the back of that photograph. He did the same thing to me. Same church. Same photographer. Same flowers. Same last name. Daniel hadn't given me a wedding. He'd given me a replica. And I had lived inside it for 3 years thinking it was mine. The last thing I found tucked inside the envelope beneath her note was a photograph I hadn't seen before. Margaret on her wedding day. St. Michael's. Pale pink peonies. She was smiling. She looked exactly like me. Or maybe I looked exactly like her. I'm still not sure which one of us should be more afraid of that.